If you want to join Thanksgiving, come wash the dishes." Her voice cracked through the phone like cheap glass. My daughter-in-law never whispered. She performed. In the background, I could hear laughter, my son's voice, my wife's, a chorus. I stood alone in the airport lounge, staring at the private boarding pass in my hand. Zurich, one way. "Enjoy," I said. I ended the call before she could taste my silence. The photos posted 30 minutes later were deliberate. Marble floors, glass walls, snow-kissed mountains folding into the horizon. My villa in Switzerland, purchased quietly 6 months ago, under a holding company no one in my family knew existed. 71 missed calls. 71. Greed always screams when it realizes the door is closing. But this wasn't about Thanksgiving. It wasn't about dishes. It was about the moment 3 weeks earlier when I saw my wife's car parked outside. A downtown office building she had no reason to visit. Every day, same time, 2 hours. Routine is a language, and I am fluent in it. That was the day the ground beneath my marriage shifted. Not violently, silently. I followed her once. Just once. The building housed an insurance consultancy. Firm. Mid-sized. Forgettable. Frosted glass and fake ferns. She walked in without hesitation. Like she belonged. I waited in the car across the street and watched the clock dissolve. 90 minutes later, she exited with a man in a charcoal suit. Late 40s. Careful smile. The kind of man who practiced sincerity in mirrors. He touched her lower back. Casually, intimately, not new lovers. Comfortable ones? I didn't confront her that night. I watched her cook dinner. Laugh at my son's joke. Ask me if I wanted more wine. Her eyes met mine across the table. Warm. Familiar. Performing. The first crack wasn't the affair. It was the lie told with ease. 3 days later, I learned his name. Daniel Mercer. Senior claims analyst. Insurance. Claims. My wife had recently increased my life insurance policy to $20 million. She said it was for security. I signed without argument. Trust is a muscle. Mine had been trained for decades. I began replaying conversations in my head. Her sudden interest in my travel schedule. Her questions about hiking alone. Her insistence that I renew the policy before my birthday. I didn't feel rage. I felt mathematics assembling. If I died accidentally, if Daniel processed the claim, if my wife wept convincingly, $20 million. Shared grief, shared wealth, shared future. Without me. I hired a forensic accountant first, not a private detective. Money leaves fingerprints before lovers do. Within a week, we uncovered small transfers from a shell vendor, company into Daniel's side consultancy. Unusual patterns, structured amounts. Then I requested my own policy documents from the insurers. Compliance department, directly, quietly. The beneficiary had been updated 2 months ago. Primary, my wife. Secondary, a trust I had never authorized. Trustee, Daniel Mercer. Interesting. I maintained my routine at home. Breakfast at 7. Gym at 9. I kissed her cheek before leaving. She smelled like the same perfume she'd worn on our anniversary. I began recording her calls through a mirrored line installed in my study. Legal, considering the property was under my name. Her voice softened when she spoke to him. "After Thanksgiving," she whispered once. "He always hikes alone after Thanksgiving." My pulse slowed instead of racing. There it is. I never hiked alone, not without informing at least 3 people, but she believed I did. That was the story they were building. An unfortunate fall, snow, isolation, delayed rescue. I let them continue. I adjusted my will. Moved assets offshore, transferred property deeds, liquidated joint accounts into a structure neither of them could touch. Then I contacted federal authorities anonymously, providing documentation of internal manipulation within the insurance firm, claims tampering, conflict of interest, beneficiary fraud. I never mentioned her name. I didn't have to. Daniel would unravel first. And when he did, he would drag her down to save himself. People in love are loyal. People facing prison are practical. The call came at 6:12 a.m. Federal agents executed search warrants at Daniel's office and home. My wife watched the news while holding her coffee. Her hands trembled. I observed her reflection in the television screen rather than her face. "They're saying insurance fraud," she whispered. "Yes," I replied calmly. "It appears so." Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. She didn't answer. At 9:30, 2 agents knocked on our door. professional, polite. They requested financial records and clarification regarding policy amendments. I stepped aside and invited them in. She looked at me then, really looked at me. For the first time in months, there was no performance, only fear. When the agents left, she turned to me. "You knew." It wasn't a question. I handed her a folder. Transcripts, bank trails, copies of recorded calls, her voice plotted neatly in black ink. She sank into the chair as if gravity had finally discovered her. I remained standing. "I was never hiking alone," I said softly. Silence filled the room like smoke. Daniel cooperated within 48 hours. Full disclosure in exchange for reduced sentencing. He provided messages, emails, draft scenarios outlining my accidental death. Estimated timeline, late November. Estimated payout, $20 million. Projected split, 60-40. I admired their optimism. My wife was arrested the following week. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, insurance fraud, financial manipulation. She didn't scream. She looked at me as they placed the cuffs on her wrists, searching for something. Mercy! Regret. Maybe a version of me that still loved her. But love is difficult to sustain once someone has calculated your death. "I would have shared it with you," she whispered as they led her away. That was the moment I understood her fully. She believed betrayal was negotiable. In court, I testified with clinical precision. No anger, no theatrics, just facts. The jury didn't deliberate long. Federal prison for both. 7 years for her. 5 for Daniel. Reduced, of course. Practical. The Swiss villa overlooks a frozen lake. Still, controlled, silent. Exactly how I prefer my world now. My son called once after the sentencing. Accusations tangled with shame. I didn't defend myself. Truth does not require applause. When my daughter-in-law saw the photographs of the villa, realizing the inheritance they anticipated had evaporated, her panic amused me. 71 calls. Greed mourning its own funeral. I spend my mornings walking along the snow-covered terrace, breathing air that belongs to no one. They plotted my death. I orchestrated their future. I did not raise my voice. I did not lift a hand. I simply removed myself from their equation. And when you remove the target, the trap collapses on the hunters. I no longer feel anger, only clarity. They wanted $20 million. I kept my life, and that was always worth more.